You're live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the pasture and the bread oven. We are here at Kona Historical Society in Kalu, South Kona, on the big island of Hawaii, in the middle of COVID-19 affecting all our lives. This is our first attempt to do this with you, our wonderful Facebook viewers. We are trying to keep history alive in a very strange time when we can't get up close with each other, we can't breathe on each other, and you can't breathe on me either. So we hope you enjoyed this. We're going to kind of chat a teeny bit so everybody can have time to check into this Facebook page here at Kona Historical Society, and also with the Friends of Amy B.H. Greenville Ethno-Botanical Garden, another fun nonprofit here in Kona. My name is Maile Melrose. I am talking to a little black telephone right now with a beady white eye looking at me. So if you think, man, she looks a little disconnected, that's the reason. I am not totally used to doing this, but you're not totally used to listening to history via your phone either. So it's going to work out just perfectly. So this program is going to be called Mondays with Maile. Can you believe this? A virtual talk story. And you think, okay, why is Maile doing this? I'm doing this because I was asked to do it by nice Dansa Oki, the executive director of the Kona Historical Society, because in years past I have written little historical stories for the Historical Society, and you may have read them. They're called Maile's Meanderings, and usually I get a black and white photograph that I love, and then I write about it, you know, whether it's a canoe race or a landscape or a picture of a kind of cool person. So this is kind of an offshoot of Maile's Meanderings. And we're going to try this every Monday for a while until the end of time, or my voice falls apart, or yeah, we can't do this. And I'm not alone down here in this pasture. I want you to know the phone is being held by helpful Alexis Ching. And in the background is nice Ku'ulani Old, who's been here at the Kona Historical Society forever, program director. And we're kind of enjoying this. So we're down here, and if you're a member of Kona Historical Society, you've been down here before. You know, here we are. Here is the bread oven where we used to cook a whole bunch of Portuguese sweet bread and garlic bread and cinnamon rolls, and we all got fat and chubby and loved it. And if Alexis goes up, I'll point up the hill. That's the back side of H.N. Greenwell's store and the little buildings that house, you know, our executive director and our bookkeeper and the bathrooms. You gotta have some bathrooms or you can't have a historic place to be. And so we actually kind of, you know, we're in an old cow pasture and it's been mowed and taken care of. And if you look, I'm under the bread oven. If you look Makai, Alexis can get it. I mean, you have got the Pacific Ocean behind me. This is a beautiful afternoon in South Kona. The weather is great. We are still at the tail end of the dry season, traditionally, but the rains will come soon. Or if the weather seems to be quite jammed up, the rains will continue. We don't know what's going on. So, you know where you are. You're at Kalu. You're at the Kona Historical Society. And this is an interactive conversation. If you have a question, if you want to comment, I can't hear Maile's teeth are black, just type. I guess you know how to do this better than I do. You can communicate. And Alexis will tell me what you're interested in, perhaps, if she can read your writing.
Yeah, we have Pixie watching.
Pixie Todd is watching, probably watching her little mo'opuna running around the floor, perhaps. Hey, Pixie, good to see you. Pixie should be here at the Kona Historical Society, but she's gone and retired. Just perfect timing, Pixie. Pixie is what I am, Kona girl. I was born in Baltimore, that was bad, but raised in Kona. Raised in Kona, this is my home. This is why I love this place. This is why I'm going to talk to you today about a little history. And you think, why does she even know this stuff? It's because I grew up here and I had people talking to me my whole life, telling me their stories, pieces of the past. This is how we get these stories to go on into the future. So, experiment. Dear viewers, do you think the viewers are there? Or is it Okay, viewers, this is really good. All right, so what I need to also say is I am actually a great-granddaughter of Henry Nicholas Greenwell and his wife, Elizabeth Caroline. So we're kind of sitting in their backyard. We're sitting down below their main house. I am their great-granddaughter. Of course, they were dead long before I ever got born. The first Mr. Greenwell, an English immigrant to the Hawaiian Kingdom, died back in 1891. His darling wife died in 1934. But the fun part about them is they had 10 children, 10 healthy children who all grew up to adulthood and went on to have their own lives. So I want you to think of this place as a place of children. Because of course when you have 10 children, then you're going to have lots of grandchildren, and you're going to have a whole family. So today, even though we all have social distancing and there are no children in sight, this is a place where little children used to play a great deal and where they had fun. This was their home. Oh, this is fun. The monkey pod leaves are blowing out of the tree, coming down like raindrops on us. It's just darling. Okay, so I'm the great-granddaughter. I'm a kupuna. That means I'm the grandmother age. I'm 69 years old, so if somebody's going to get this stupid COVID-19, it might be me. But I feel very healthy today, and I don't think it's going to happen. But as we're finding out right now, as we live through this incredible COVID-19 pandemic,
We're having some video trouble.
uh-oh, we're having some video trouble. Are we in a funny place?
Let's see.
Mrs. Alexis is going to try to fix the video problem.
Let's see.
She's moving the
Okay.
phone.
How's that, everyone?
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, you think? Can Pixie hear me? Alexis is doing the long arm thing, so we all don't infect each other, which is such a bad idea. Okay. Well,
Okay, so Jim said it's going again. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Mahalo, it's going again. So we haven't moved. We're still here in this bread oven. I'm just telling you that I'm 69 years old and a grandmother. So in case you just think, okay, what age group is she? Because, haha, you can tell. I am. All right. And then you think, why do I get to do this? I just wanted to show you. In the old days, I wrote this book, A Guide to Old Kona. So I've been dealing with Kona history for quite a long time. But I'm also giving a shout out to the people at the garden, dear garden people. I hope you're listening as well. Because, see, for the last 4 years, I have been the president of the Friends of Amy B.H. Greenwell Ethnobotanical Garden. And in November of 2019, this non-profit homegrown organization purchased Amy's garden from the Bishop Museum. So the garden that probably lots of you have visited in the past and we want you to come visit in the future is now owned by all of us. It's owned by all of us. It is a community-owned, non-profit Hawaiian ethnobotanical garden. And so it's your garden. Come and see it and pay attention to it. Okay. Today my topic is an important topic. It is the Spanish flu. I'm going to get my little chair and sit down so I don't do the hunchy thing. This is kind of good fun. Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to talk about the Spanish flu, the killer virus that swept around the world for 2 long years, from 1918 to 1920, killing over 21 million people. I mean, just all of us are hearing too many numbers nowadays about how many people are dying and how many people are infected. But 21 million people is a lot of people. So that was a very bad, well, the worst pandemic that we can think of in our recent memory. Exactly 100 years ago, that would be April 20th, 1920, people the world over were doing exactly what we're doing. They were struggling to stay healthy. They were trying so hard not to get killed in this kind of mysterious disease. We are living living the same experience that our grandparents lived through and our great-grandparents. An experience we never thought we would live through, and unfortunately most of us, now that we're living through it, our grandparents and our great-grandparents aren't here to tell us exactly what happened. So we have to kind of go back and piece back the memories, use photographs, dig up those newspaper stories, or go online. Thank goodness we're all connected. So, I just want you to know we are the Aloha State, and we do pride ourselves on welcoming people. But because of this disease, we're kind of changing. It's kind of a strange thing. If you grew up in Hawaii, the word quarantine was for dogs and cats coming into the state to stop them from bringing rabies to us. And now we're all hearing this word quarantine. If you test positive, you have to quarantine yourself. We're asking visitors to the island. If you're a visitor, I'm sorry you're stuck in your hotel room, but you have to be quarantined because this thing is contagious and we don't want it to spread around. When I lived in Waimea, there were people who still remembered the Bubonic Plague, which is a very bad disease. It's been on the earth for centuries. It was endemic in the sugar plantations of old Hawaii because of rats. Lots of rats lived in the sugar plantations and they got infected and the fleas bit people, and then they got Bubonic Plague and they were put in plague houses and the big red X was on the door and nobody could visit them. So bad stuff happened. What we are facing now seems like something unreal, but it's happened before and unfortunately it might happen again. Okay, so we're back 100 years ago. The disease has appeared and it erupted. It emerged in Kansas, America, at an army base on March 11th, 1918, at Haskell, Kansas. Soldiers mysteriously came down with fevers. They broke out in mahogany-colored spots on their cheeks. Yikes! They developed what looked like pneumonia, and then they died. Nice young soldiers, not exactly the population that you think was going to drop dead right off the bat. Looking back at this epicenter of what would become a devastating pandemic, what do we know? Conditions on the base were crowded. Apparently really crowded, very unsanitary. I hate to think our army was treating young men like that, but they were because it was the middle of World War I. I think Alexis and Kululeni are trying to do something to the phone, but I hope you can still see me.
People are having some trouble hearing with the wind.
Oh no!
So we're just trying to adjust. Maybe if I go in.
Is the wind coming that way? Okay, oh, Alexis is crawling over. Maybe you can crawl into the bread oven, Alexis. I think that'd be a good place. Then there wouldn't be any wind, would there? Yeah. No, the wind. Okay, let's see. So here we are. We're in Haskell, Texas. The poor young men are getting ill March 11th, 1918. So, there was nothing in the medical kit to stop the disease, just like today. Less than 4 months later, this Spanish flu, but they didn't call it Spanish flu when it first arrived in Hawaii. 4 months later, the disease reached our islands via Europe. Those young soldiers who were being trained and equipped on American soil are sent over to Europe to be fighting. The disease follows them to Europe. It goes around the world and ends up in Hawaii. It had hopscotched its way around the globe in record time. In America and in Hawaii, we did not know very much about the disease. Why is that? It's because it's the war and the press is censored. So the American press is censored. People don't know what's going on. Alexis told me it's called the Spanish flu because when people started getting sick in Spain, their press was not as censored as the American press, and Spain started reporting on this disease and describing it. And because the information came out of the country of Spain, they called it the Spanish flu. But actually, it should have been called the American flu. Terrible, but that's really true. All right. The disease appeared in waves. This is not good news for us who are living through COVID-19, but it is the truth. The disease appeared in waves. The first wave in Hawaii lasted a couple of months through June and July of 1918. Then we are followed by a second wave right around Christmas time, which is so horrible, December of 1918, just 1 month after the end of World War I. I mean, if you go back, you try to put your head into this, what America was going, what the world was going through. World War I had finally stopped November 11th, and yet young men are dying by the thousands all over the place, and young women, and babies, lots of babies. So doctors in Hawaii called it la grippe, you know, that kind of French word for the horrible griping pain you might get, and you call it la grippe. Well, they didn't know what to call it, so they called it la grippe, and they suggested rinsing your mouth and your nostrils out with germ-destroying lotions as often as possible. And they said, stay away from grippies. Disinfection. Ew, at least they tried disinfection. Remember, we're talking about 1918. There are no antibiotics. Lord knows there's very much aspirin. We don't have much to deal with. We have gauze bandages. We have, you know, compresses to put on hot foreheads. People are fighting this out on their own. In 1919, okay, see, so what happens? We have the second wave comes in December, January of 1919. The Queen's Hospital in Honolulu converted its entire hospital into an influenza ward. So they stopped babies and broken legs and, you know, maybe a little leprosy here and there. They said, nope, we're going to just be all influenza. And the deaths on the mainland spiked in 1918. But the deaths in Hawaii did not spike until 1920. We lost the most people in 1920. Yikes. Those who seemed to die the most were the very young, children under 5, and the old, people over 60. Ghastly. However, many, many people of all ages died of this disease, including the thousands of soldiers who had survived the war, only to die tragically of the flu when they got home. Now we have an interesting sound coming from Greenville Farms. Somebody is playing with their hideous engine. It's all right, we'll see if I can just trot on. Okay, now this is the whole point of this story. One of those young, innocent victims was 10-year-old Henry Allen Greenwell, just a little boy who grew up across the street from where I am sitting right now. So if you've ever visited Kona Historical Society on Mamalohoa Highway, Greenwell Store is on the Makai side of the road. Ahuanani, a lovely white 2-story house with a big veranda around it, is on the Mauka side of the road. It has green shutters, and it was sold decades ago to Youth with a Mission, and they renamed it the King's Mansion for God. But its real name, given to it by H.N. and E.C. Greenwell's eldest son, so that's William Henry Greenwell. He built that house when he got married in 1908. He was the eldest son of Mr. Greenwell, and he was a highly responsible, wonderful, hardworking rancher. He was a rancher. He was here raising cattle, and he did not get married until he's like 38 years old because he's waiting for the right Miss Somebody. And that right Miss Somebody was this adorable young Scottish woman called Maude Annandale Johnston. She came here with her grandmother on a trip around the world, visiting old friends and relations. And amazingly, a couple of their old friends were the minister, the Reverend D.D. Wallace and his wife at Christ Church. So when you were here doing the Greenwell story, we have Kalu Kalu, we have H.N. Greenwell Store, we have Ahuanani, the home across the street, and right over there, I could walk there in 2 minutes at a fast clip, is Christ Church, the oldest Anglican church in the Kingdom of Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, the whole shebang, 1867. So, church history, what goes on at Christ Church goes on here at Kalu Kalu with the Greenwell family. If we're going to die, we're going to get buried at that church, and those ministers are going to bury us. And if we're going to get married, it's going to be all happy days, and we'll get married there. And that's terrific. But right now, we're having the miserable days. So, this cute young boy, I'm going to try to show you his picture. Here we go. All right. Well, we're not going to go there right yet. Yes. So we're here. Granny Greenwell is alive here at Kalu Kalu. She's thrilled to see her eldest son get married. At last, he becomes a father in 1919. He's 40 years old. And it's a boy. His first little child is a boy. And they name him Henry, of course, after his father and his grandfather, Henry Nicholas. And they stick Allen in there, which I think is a favorite Johnston name. It's a Greenwell name too, but it's a Johnston name from Scotland. So little Henry Allen. And I just have to show you this picture because he's so adorable. And you're going to like him. And I don't know how Alexis can see that, but this is the eldest son, Henry Allen, and this is his brother, Jack Bryson Greenwell. So these two little boys, 1909, probably 1911, and this is a picture taken probably very much around 1919. And this little boy is probably 10 years old, just a darling boy. So, the Spanish flu gets here to Hawaii, and guess what? We don't take this lying down. You know, this is what's great about people who live in communities. This is a book written by Nancy Klein about the history of Christ Church, Queen Emma's Church in Kealakekua. So we've got this great Royal Hawaiian family connection. Here's our church. We open it up, and there's a women's guild that works with the Reverend D.D. Wallace, because he came from Utah, and he came with a lot of great ideas, and he had a super wife who was like a first-generation social worker. And they're like, get these women, get them organized and get them to work. So they made a guild, they made an auxiliary, and during the time of the Spanish flu epidemic, what is the first thing that these women do? The guild raises money and installs a telephone at the parsonage at Christ Church because the minister's wife, Mrs. D. Douglas Wallace, is the head of the Red Cross. Now, the American Red Cross has just come to Hawaii. This is kind of a fun sidebar. 1917. And guess who the first honorary leader of the Red Cross is? It is Queen Liliuokalani. And she sews a Red Cross flag in Honolulu, and the flag is raised over Iolani Palace, which is a fabulous image and just a wonderful, the women of Hawaii are united behind the Dowager Queen, and World War I is going on, and everybody gets together and they roll bandages and they make gauze packs, and they think of the young men fighting for America and for England and for France around the world. And strangely enough, Granny Greenwell here at Kalu Kalu, her oldest grandson, born in North Kohala, raised in North Kohala. He's like 18 years old. He has this feeling that he must join World War I's war effort. Henry Rattenberry Bryant, HNG's first namesake, and he signs up, and he goes off to Canada, and he's trained as a pilot, and he fights for Britain and for America, and he's shot down over Italy and dies. So his name is on the war memorial in Honolulu at the natatorium, and there is a memorial, because not that many people from Hawaii died in World War I fighting in Europe. But a grandson from this place is one of those first taken, which is very sad. So, that's all right. So we have a lot of fervor going on. We've got fervor with the Queen, we've got fervor with Mrs. Wallace, we've got a telephone connected because the Red Cross has to stay connected. Then what happens? This epidemic sweeps in waves across the island chain, and it does a very strange thing that health professionals still don't understand. It seems to sweep from Kauai down through Oahu, Maui, our island, and kind of peter out, and then it starts up again in another wave, and it always comes down this Kauai, Oahu there. The first case that ever came in Hawaii did start out on Oahu, and it started out on the military bases because the war is still going on and these young men have come from someplace else. and it breaks out in Hawaii on the military bases. And the kooky thing is, when we have our total of how many people died, the over 2,300 during the 2 years of the Spanish flu epidemic, that does not include the military deaths. So there are hundreds more that should be added that actually died in Hawaii. So here's the Spanish. Here's our book, page 85. An epidemic of influenza in Kona caused the 10 members present of the Women's Guild in March 18th of 1919 to set aside all other work to answer an emergency call, and 12 pillowcases, 12 Japanese towels, 2 kimonos, and 1 child's kimono were the result of the afternoon's work. Another outbreak of influenza in March of 1920 kept the members too busy as amateur nurses to hold any meetings that month. So, I mean, influenza was here. It was killing people. It was making people horribly, horribly sick. And that's ghastly. So, now, this is the horrible part. So, lots of people are sick. Everyone. And we have young Henry Allen Greenwell is the little boy who grew up right away from where I am with his darling, happy mother and his very proud and hardworking father. He caught the Spanish flu. He caught the Spanish flu. So he's not the right age to die. He is 10 years old. He has a younger brother. You saw his little brother Jack in the picture. He's got 2 younger sisters. His mother is expecting another baby. But he does. He dies. And in a very strange way, you think, why did I know about the Spanish flu? I talked to my 2 sisters about this. We knew about the Spanish flu because we all went to Christ Church as children. And when young Henry dies, his parents put up in his memory a beautiful, beautiful stone on his grave. Oh, I'll show you the picture. See, we have the picture here thanks to Alexis. So it's here. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to give you this is Christ Church. This is a very nice picture. We'll make it nice. Okay, so this is our oldest Anglican church in the state of Hawaii, built in 1867 by an English missionary. That's the entrance. These are some very famous stones. These 2 stones over here actually are H.N. Greenwell and his wife E.C. Greenwell. There they are. And you can't see Allen's stone yet. And you can't see it in this one either. This is when you walk out of the church. It's very beautiful. It's just a little church. It's made of wood. It's not fancy. When you walk out the door, you see the same view. You see the ocean. You see Mr. Hines' great big obelisk. You see a lot of stones. But then, after 1919, we see this. This is 5 feet tall. This stone is as big as I am because I just went and stood next to it. And it's got a little lichen on it. It's a great stone. It says Allen right across here. Henry Allen Greenwell, born October 15th, 1908, died August 11th, 1919. He didn't make his 11th birthday. He was darn close, but he didn't make it. And you can't see the words at the bottom, but I know what they are. We just went and looked at it. It says, love knows no measure, has no grave. Which is what heartbroken parents would put on their beloved child's thing. Love knows no measure, has no grave. So when we were children, and we weren't the only ones, we would go and stare at this cross. And we knew he died, because that's bad to die. You're so young. And he was one of the only kids. There are not that many 10-year-olds in graveyards around here. So apparently my sister Amanda got really quite scared that this was normal. You're supposed to die when you're 10 years old. And she was so relieved. She said when she got to be like 11 or 12, that, whew, I missed it. I don't have to die of the Spanish flu. But little Henry Allen Greenwell did. And what is so amazing, this is what family history just is so interesting for so many reasons. I've got to show you this. So this is not a great photograph, but this is when Henry Allen was a baby with his, well, he's not the baby, he's the big boy with the blonde hair. Jack, his little brother, is sitting. So this is Henry Allen on his father W.H. William Henry's lap. And this is Maude holding little Jack. So they're pretty proud, right? You got two boys. And I'll just show you this picture of Maude. She gets a little older, but she still is young. She was a pretty woman. This is my grandmother. You know, these are just, this is what's fun about family history. This is my grandmother. We called her Gaga. She loved it. She was a wonderful grandmother. She didn't care what we called her, so she was Gaga. But she was the kind of lady who did not dwell in the past. She had a light heart, and she'd been through a lot. Her parents died. She knew what it was like to be an orphan. She didn't expect, I don't think, to have her child die, but she had a little sister who died. People said, life can be very cruel. Life can be hard. Oh, my poor little flower is falling out. That's ultra sad. We'll stick it back in. Okay, so here we go. So he died, which was bad. But the family went on. So this is why life is so interesting. Here we are right now in the middle of a pandemic, and all of you are celebrating children's birthdays, wedding anniversaries. Babies are getting born. People are dying. People aren't liking this horrible fact we can't be in the hospital with the people who are dying. That didn't happen here. There wasn't a hospital, so there was no place to put people, really. They didn't go to the hospital to die. They died at home. The one person in Kona who always used to talk to me about this death was Mrs. Tashima. I think you all know Tashima's restaurant, and its wonderful proprietress, Mrs. Mary, I'm going to get her Japanese name wrong, I think Shiono. Not quite right, not that. Mrs. Tashima was in school at Kona in 1919. Kona had some interesting women here with their military husbands, and this was a very wonderful school teacher who showed up, and she was always, Mrs. Tashima knew her as a girl. And this lady came into the children's, this is 1919, Mrs. Tashima died a few years ago at 106, so those of us in Kona all know her. I mean, it's sad now, what is it? It's 2020. So 100 years ago, Mary Tashima lived to be 106. She's just a little girl. This lady came into the classroom very seriously and stood at the front of the classroom, and they all knew her, like maybe she'd been helping out. Her husband was in the military, maybe an army officer. And she said, last night, the most beautiful child died, the most beautiful boy. And she never forgot those words. And she used to come sit down if I was there with my family having dinner, as she often did to everybody. Mrs. Tashima was great. She'd come in and sit at your table and say, are you enjoying the food? Do you have everything you need? And then she'd always tell a few stories, and one of them was always that she realized that the Greene family had lost the most beautiful child, and she was sad about it. And she made us sad about it. It was like, oh my gosh, this boy died. Then he was buried, and then they put a big gravestone up over his grave, and he's gone forever. But his mother was pregnant, and when she gave birth later that year, she was about 5 months pregnant when Alan died in August. Yes, in December. She gave birth, and she had a boy. And so they named him Henry Allen Greenwell. And they didn't put Henry Allen Greenwell II or Henry Allen, there was no asterisk next to his name. They just couldn't call him Allen because Allen had died. And they couldn't call him Henry because Henry was his father's name. So my Aunt Beth told me they just called him Boy. He was just called Boy until 1927 when his father did die. And then he was 8 years old, and it was time for him to take on the name of Henry. So it's very confusing looking up photographs in our archives because we have two Henry Allen Greenwells and they're not the same people, and it's going to confuse people. But life goes on. That's what goes, this is what we're all having to focus on, is that life does go on. So There are lots of stories written about the Spanish flu now. You can go online and you can read. There's a nice historian at the University of Hawaii. I don't know how to say your name, Shana or Shana, but you wrote a good story for the Star Advertiser, and she kind of criticizes Hawaii's response to the Spanish flu epidemic. She said our government didn't know what to do. They didn't know. People on the mainland, they shut down the movie theaters, they closed the schools. Really, they did what they're trying to do nowadays, and our territorial government didn't know what to do. So it was spotty. People didn't know, but people were wearing gauze masks. People were trying to stay apart. The American Red Cross was doing a fabulous job. All those young women knew how to carry stretchers because of the war, and they were carrying stretchers. She said, in retrospect, leadership was lacking. And of course, everybody's dead who was the leader back in 1919, so we can't really say, naughty, naughty you have junk leadership. And she also said, if there isn't an informed public, people cannot make good decisions for themselves or for their community. This is a quote from Shana's story in the Star Advertiser, and I really like it because I think that's what we need right now. This is why we do need good information. We do need to know what's going on. Then we can make the right choices for ourselves and our families, because none of us want to be like Maude Greenwell and to have to put her beautiful little boy into the ground. How do I hate this? And I just kind of wanted to make a little PS, because it's been confusing me looking up this stuff, the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic disease. And an epidemic is a highly contagious disease that affects a large part of the population. So that's epidemic. Highly contagious disease affects a large part of your population. A pandemic means of or belonging to the people. It has that word demos, pandemos, democracy, government by the people. So pandemos means it's all over the people. It belongs to the whole world. A disease that affects an exceptionally high proportion of the world's population. And in modern slang, if we're looking this up, we just go, a pandemic is an epidemic on steroids. Horrible, horrible, but that's what it is. It's a super epidemic. It's a pandemic. And I grew up, my father was a doctor. I just talked to my father on the phone. I said, Daddy, did you ever think there was going to be a pandemic like this going around the world? The Spanish flu could come back. It's not the Spanish flu, but it's a nasty disease, just like the Spanish flu was. And he said, no, he really didn't. He went to Johns Hopkins. I said, Daddy, did they teach you about pandemics? He's 94 years old right now, but his memory's pretty darn good. And he said, no, he didn't remember them teaching the young doctors about facing pandemics. He was not in public health, but it's pretty crazy. So I think I'm coming to the end of this talk, and I wanted to say thank you, all you Facebook viewers and garden friend viewers out there. Thank you for caring about history. That's what we're trying to do here at Kona Historical, is tell you a little piece of history. We are living in an extraordinary time. I feel, and Alexis, those of us who are here at Kona Historical, we know we're lucky to be living on the island of Hawaii. Our hospitals are not inundated with sick people. We are very fortunate. We're so blasted fortunate. And if any of you are living in a terrible place with terrible inundated hospitals, I just hope things will improve. All of us are far away from different members of our families. We have to stay away from them. Even if they're your grandchildren, you're not supposed to be hanging out with them all the time. It's bad. So I kind of stuck this on at the end because I know it sounds corny, but what's fun about this coming together over the internet is that you can connect. You can connect with other human beings. So consider yourself part of Kona Historical Society's family. Our little ether space family. That's good fun. We can't exist without you, the community. No nonprofit can exist. We're all going to go bankrupt. Please don't do that. So this is an invitation we will have a new topic. We won't talk about the Spanish flu next Monday, but we're going to talk about something else, and maybe we'll find a cool photograph in the archive that we can share and get everybody thinking about what it is we're going to talk about. But we hope you come back, okay? So, Maile Melrose signing off from the Portuguese bread oven down here at Kalu Kalu. Aloha. And I can't see any of you, so I can't say see you next time. But you can say see you next time, Maile. Oh, and I didn't even ask if you had a question. Did anyone have a question, Alexis?
No questions right now, but a lot of thank yous.
Well, thank you back. Thank you for listening. It's kind of fun to be doing this. I cannot tell a lie. I'm having fun sitting down here in the bread oven talking to the phone. Because although I'm really English, Irish, and Scotch, in my heart, I am Portuguese, and I like to talk a great deal. Okay, bye-bye for now.